What is going on, guys? This is Crowzen, and welcome to another Shadowheart build. I call this the Fiery Necromancer. It is a pretty unique build because when people think about a pure Cleric, they're not thinking about a Necromancer build, right? So I wanted to keep this kind of role-playing based where we're mostly just going to use fire and necromancy spells, while still having a bunch of summons, especially ones that are unique to a Cleric, such as the Cambion Fiend. And then we're also going to have the healing that we get from a Cleric too. So when you combine all of those things, it makes for a real interesting and unique build. And it's probably the most fun I've had playing Shadowheart as a pure Cleric since I started this game. So yeah, let's get into making a Fiery Necromancer. So starting with our ability points, this is going to look very similar to my life domain build for Shadow, which will be 17 Wisdom, 16 Constitution, 14 Dexterity, and 10 Strength, and then I lower Intelligence and Charisma down to 8. And then for the skill proficiencies, we're going to go with History and Medicine. Now, if you want to do any kind of dialogue checks with Shadow, you may want to consider a little bit more Charisma here, maybe lowering Strength, and then also going for the Persuasion skill proficiency. But Dexterity is going to be better than Strength here. Dexterity is just going to give you higher initiative, and it's also going to affect your armor class as well with medium armor. So I definitely recommend Dexterity over Strength. And then for the cantrips, we're going to go with Guidance, Resistance, and Blade Ward. And then the subclass will be the Light Domain. The Light Domain will give us a bunch of fire spells, which will get us halfway there towards being a Fiery Necromancer. Now we're going to take a look at the level path, and the first major upgrade you get is at level 4. This is where you can select an additional cantrip. We're just going to go with Sacred Flame here, and then we can select our first feat. What I like to do here is I go for ability improvements. I get Wisdom up to 18, and then I also get Constitution up to 17. Our next big upgrade comes at level 8, and this is where we can select a second feat. What I like to do for this feat is I go for Resilient, Constitution. This way we get our Constitution up to 18, and we also gain proficiency with Constitution, which means that we're going to be able to keep a lot of concentration spells, such as Spirit Guardians, up a lot longer. At level 10, we gain an additional cantrip, and what I do here is I just go for Produce Flame. Finally, at level 12, we gain our third feat, and we're just going to go with ability improvement here and max out our wisdom at 20. Next up is to prepare our spells. So as I stated in the intro, we're trying to keep things either fire, necromancy, summon, or healing based. And with our prepared spells, we're going to be able to get 3 out of 4 of those things. So we're going to start out with the level 1 spells with Healing Word, Inflict Wounds, and Cure Wounds. Inflict Wounds is going to be your main melee damaging spell. Really good necrotic damage, and later on in the game when you get a really good staff, you could basically infinitely cast this as a level 6 spell. Never waste a slot, and it's just going to do a lot of good damage on top of the rest of your summons. So level 2 spells, we're going to go with Blindness, Aid, Silence, and Spiritual Weapon. Aid is going to be really useful here with all of the summons that you have. Basically, you want to get all of your summons out and then cast Aid as probably a level 5 spell, and this will give you 20 extra hit points not only on your whole party but all of your summons. And it's a really good spell, just keeps you alive longer, keeps your summons alive longer, and being that we're a Cleric, this is a really good benefit that we have. Our level 3 spells are going to be Bestow Curse, Speak with Dead, Feign Death, Animate Dead, Spirit Guardians, and Mass Healing Word. Our main ones here are going to be Spirit Guardians and Animate Dead. We also have the Revive spell, which we can probably substitute Feign Death with, but Spirit Guardians, it's not a necromancy spell, but it does have necrotic damage, so it kind of keeps the vibe of this build. It's a really good spell. Probably the main concentration spell you're going to be using with this build, as there really isn't too many of the fire spells that require any kind of concentration. So you could just reserve this for Spirit Guardians, and it's just going to make this build even better. Animate Dead is a really good spell. This is going to summon either zombies or skeletons for you, or ghouls or flying ghouls. Now, I prefer to go with the level 4 upcast and summon 3 zombies. I think that's going to be the best option here. The skeletons are bugged right now, so for whatever reason they don't have a ranged weapon on them. I think this happened with the last patch. So just stick with the zombies for now, and that's just going to give you 3 extra summons there. Really good spell, and yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you upcast it to level 4 though. We're going to skip over level 4 spells, and we're going to go with the level 5 spell Mass Cure Wounds. It just adds an additional AoE healing spell to your arsenal. And then for the level 6 spells, we're going to go with Planar Ally, Create Undead, and Harm. Planar Ally is the essential spell here. It just makes it to where being a pure cleric is somewhat worth it. And it's going to give you access to the Cambion Fiend. Basically just gives you an extra fiend as a summon for this build that can cast Rays of Fire. Just really adds to the vibe of this build, and it's something that other classes cannot get. So Planar Ally, definitely recommend go with the Cambion Fiend, and you're not going to be disappointed. And then yeah, Create Undead is the other one here. It just gives you an extra mummy to have by your side. And then Harm is an extra necromancy spell that you can use if you do not want to use Inflict Wounds. Now we're going to take a look at some fire spells. They're going to be in the Always Prepared spells simply because you are a light domain. And your main ones here are going to be Burning Hands. This is going to be a really good melee ranged AoE fire spell. Then you have access to Scorching Ray, which is going to be a ranged fire spell. Then you have the big AoE one, which is Fireball. This is probably the best one here, the one that you're going to really enjoy using. And yeah, it just makes for some nice explosions and probably the most fun spell here. And then the last one you have access to really is Wall of Fire, depending on the environment and you know what kind of fight it is. I wouldn't worry too much about Flame Strike. I just feel like if you're looking at an AoE spell, you know, Fireball is just going to be the bread and butter here. But yeah, those are just some honorable mentions, and yeah, just some fire spells that you're going to want to use with this build. Next up is looking at our gear. So I tried to go for gear that gave me a bonus to spell attack rolls. So items such as Mask of Soul Perception and Cloak of the Weave. That combines really good with Spell Might that you get from Spell Might gloves. So think of Sharpshooter except for spell attack rolls. We're also going to go with Armor of Agility. This is probably one of the best medium armor sets in the game. And it's just going to give you a nice bonus to your armor class, and the +2 on the saving throws is really good too. Then we're going to go for Boots of Striding. Spellcrux Amulet, this just gives you an extra spell slot restoration that you can use on any spell level. Really good if you want to use multiple level 6 spells. We're also going to go with Crypt Lord Ring. This is really good because what you can do here is use Create Undead. You can also use your Cambion Fiend as a level 6 spell. That way, if you don't have Spellcrux Amulet, you can still get 2 level 6 spells, 2 level 6 summons basically, with the Crypt Lord Ring. You can get this at the same time that you get the best staff in the game for this build, which is Staff of Cherished Necromancy. Basically, when you kill a creature with a spell, you gain life essence for the rest of the game until you long rest. And what you can do is cast any necromancy spell free of charge as many times as you want until you rest. And what I like to do is I combine this with Inflict Wounds. So if you have something like Spirit Guardians up, you could just run right in, and then also use Inflict Wounds as a nice melee spell. Upcast it to level 6, and it could do some crazy damage for you. So like always, in the last part of this video, we're going to showcase a basic fight using Shadowheart. And there's multiple things that we can do here. We did start out with the highest initiative. A lot of that is because of our dexterity, but also using the Mask of Soul Perception, which gives us a +2 bonus to initiative rolls. So none of these enemies have made a turn yet, so we're free to just cast a nice big AoE spell here. And you have multiple different options to choose from. You could go for Spirit Guardians, the necrotic one, and just run right in. You should be able to get all 5 of them You could also go for Flame Strike, but as I stated, I don't like using Flame Strike as much. The AoE range is less, so you can only hit like 4 of them with this, but let's say we go with Fireball. Now I could hit all 5 of them. So we're going to go with Fireball here. And a good practice is to always try to aim for objects as well, because using the staff, even if you don't kill an enemy, if you destroy an object, you're going to get the feature which allows you to use any necrotic spell free of a spell slot. So I'm going to try to like aim and make sure that I at least hit this sack. And yeah, we could go right here. But either way, I killed this guy, so it doesn't matter in this situation. But now we have a bonus action. With Shadowheart and using this build, you're not really going to have too many bonus actions, other than my shield that I have here. Spiritual Weapon, which is always good practice to use this probably on your first turn, and our healing spells. So I'm going to go for Spiritual Weapon here. Let's go for upcasting a Trident, and I could put one back there. I'm going to go like right here though. Before I end this turn off, I want to discuss summon limit because I haven't went over this yet, but 6 summons is not the limit here. You can actually stack scrolls. So Scroll of Conjure Minor Elemental, you can use that to summon 2 additional Mud Mephites. And then you could also use Scroll of Conjure Elemental and summon a Fire Elemental to keep the vibe of this build. And that would get you up to 9 summons. And that's not including the Necromancy of Thay book, which I'm assuming Shadowheart can read that. I don't know for certain because I haven't tested it. But if I'm correct on that, then you could have a maximum here of 13 summons. And that's pretty crazy when you think about it. So now it's the Cambion's turn. And the Cambion is mainly a ranged fighter. So Rays of Fire is going to be your main spell that you're going to use. So one thing that you want to do is always try to go for higher ground using Fly. And Fly covers a lot of distance, so it's pretty easy to do that. So we can go for higher ground going here first. And now we could use Rays of Fire on the highest % chance to hit. So as you can see, it's still pretty low. And that's the thing with summons. You always want to kind of look around and pick the one that has the highest and go for that one. So now we can control our zombies, and I'm going to go for probably this archer over here since they only have 26 HP. Maybe if I combine all 3 of these zombies, I could raise another one by killing this archer. So the good thing about the zombies is they have good range that they can cover. Really all of our summons do because they all have either jump or fly. So we can move over here. And yeah, it's only 55%, which is pretty low. So you're going to miss quite often with the zombies. But hey, the damage adds up eventually. So as you guys can see, I missed there. But yeah, we still have a couple more zombies though. So it's no big deal. So let's move this zombie over here too. And let's try again. We got a critical there. And we do have the debuff on this enemy now. So when this enemy dies, another zombie is going to be raised. So that's a good thing. So what I'm going to do here is just go for probably this guy. And now our final zombie. Let's do the same thing. Let's jump right over here. And hopefully we don't miss this time. And now we have our 4th zombie. So now we're in turn 2 and it's back to Shadowheart. And what I'm going to do here is probably just use Spirit Guardians. So we'll go with the necrotic version. So we got that guy, and I should be able to move over here and still get this archer. And that way I don't trigger an opportunity attack. Now we could clean up with the Cambion a little bit, so it's always better to try to go for the highest ground. So I'm going to go way up here, and now let's see what kind of percentage I can get on some of these enemies. So the best one here would be to go for this guy, since he has 70%. Now going back to the mummy, since we did frighten this enemy on the previous turn, we can use multi-attack. And we could do quite a bit of damage as long as we hit with both strikes. And now we're back to our zombies, and what I'm going to do is just go over to this side and target these archers. So now we have two options here with our third turn with Shadowheart. We could either run over to the left or we could run to the right, and I'm going to go this way since this person has a little bit more HP than the other. And now that we're in melee range, I'm going to use Life Essence here. So I'm going to toggle Life Essence, and as you see, we don't have a level 6 spell slot available, but with Life Essence we can cast any slot for free. And it's only 50%, that's because I have Spell Might active, so let me toggle that off. And I could live with 75%. And finally, we could just finish off this archer with our Cambion. So I appreciate you guys watching till the end, and I hope you enjoyed this build. And yeah, I think it's pretty unique because most people wouldn't assume a pure light cleric to be, you know, a full-on fiery necromancer type, you know. So I made it work here, and I hope that this helps you guys out. And if you have any more builds that you would like me to do for Baldur's Gate 3, let me know in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one.